So let me kickstart. Welcome. It's 8th of June, it's Monday. We've got 1.5 hours of interesting and inspiring speakers in our Women in Leadership webinar today. Let me first welcome all of our speakers that have taken the time for us today. And we have our Ambassador of Finland, Päivi Kaukoranta, today here. Welcome, Päivi. We've got Caroline Simon Thomas from Kone here, so welcome Caroline also to this webinar. And our third speaker is Laura Dilettant. Welcome Laura as well to this webinar. And as we go, you will tell more about yourself during your speaker sessions. Today we also want to extend our special thanks for the Finnish-British Chamber, who have kindly also shared this webinar ad on their side, and therefore we've got a few participants from there. So welcome those and them who are registered via the Finnish-British seminar. The same goes for for the Finnish or Dutch Swedish chamber, who has also, I think, advertised the webinar at the Nordic Forum as well as for the Kauppakamari, Keskuskauppakamari in Helsinki. So we've got a multiple different sources that have helped us to get our participants join us today to this webinar. Let's move forward. Let's make it an interesting 1.5 hours. So a couple of house rules you have heard in the beginning already. We try to make sure that the techniques are working and supporting us well. So therefore also for all our pleasure, we keep ourselves muted during that we are not talking. Please also limit the video such that it is off when you are not speaking. Our presenters, however, of course, can use their video on as we want to see, of course, everybody there during the day. This webinar will be recorded. We have our office, Finnish-Dutch Chamber of Commerce, is located in Rotterdam, and they are taking care of that. The technical side is working today, and that also we can record this seminar, and then afterwards, for them who were not able to make it or to see the best bits, we can review it back. All questions and comments, please raise them via the chat of this Teams meeting. You can see the icon of the chat in the control panel that everybody has in their screen on the down page. So use that. After every speaker, we will go through the questions as far as we can cover them, and hopefully we get good and lot of questions so that we get into an interactive discussion with our presenters about the Women in Leadership topic. In the social media, use the hashtag FinDutchCham and hashtag Women in Leadership when you are posting messages from this session, so it all comes together nicely. I think those are the most important house rules. Let's go forward to the agenda so that we can go into the true business. My name is Status Roderus. I am chairman of the Finnish-Dutch Chamber of Commerce. I've got the pleasure to co-host you today. My real life job is an interim management job, which I do in my private life, but here in the personal as Finnish-Dutch Chamber chairman. My co-host today is Johanna Raivio. You can see Johanna there, she's waving there, and we have the pleasure to welcome you to this webinar today. So Päivi will, our ambassador Päivi Kaukoranta will today provide us an interesting view into Women in Leadership theme, obviously as the first speaker. And obviously Päivi has a more broad perspective, either European-wide, perhaps even worldwide, but definitely for sure from Finland perspective. And we will go from there, from Päivi's perspective, into Caroline Simon Thomas's part. Caroline is from Kone and has a long career in Kone Corporation, and therefore has an interesting perspective about women in leadership, about what does the new time now after COVID and during COVID actually mean into women in leadership in a corporate environment. So pretty interesting, inspiring thoughts, I'm sure, that can be triggered from that session as well. And last but not definitely least is our third speaker, Laura. Laura is a specialized, inspiring talker also, and has a book even about victim to winner coaching, and is really taking us to a more personal perspective about leadership and women in leadership topic. So therefore, we will have this kind of, let's say, zoom in approach in our webinar, from the broad perspective into corporate perspective, and then into personal perspective during this 1.5 hours that we will use together. Let's go forward. I think we can't pass the COVID as one of the most drastic things that is impacting our everyday life today. Now, the big question is, how is the new normal going to look like, and how is our leadership going to look like? So, Johanna, please introduce us our theme, because my question is the world still designed for men?
Thank you, Satu. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is indeed Johanna Raivio. I'm reporting live from Rotterdam, from the Finse House, where Finnish Dutch Chamber of Commerce's office is as well. So greetings to everyone. So just to lead into the topic, is the world still designed for men? Since women spend 3 times as many hours as men in unpaid care and domestic work, limiting their access to decent work still nowadays. And more men between the ages of 25 to 54 in the labor force than women. Also, the global gender pay gap is stuck at 16%, with women paid up to 35% less than men in some countries. So the world has changed, of course, now due to the impact of the COVID crisis. But there lies also more opportunities for women, maybe. For example, the Finnish government is mainly led by young females. So this brings to the topic, to our first speaker, Päivi Kaukoranta, who will lead us to the topic towards more European or global perspective on the topic. So without further ado, our first speaker, Ambassador Päivi Kaukoranta, who is the ambassador in the Embassy of Finland to the Netherlands. Please welcome Päivi.
Thank you, Satu and Johanna, and good afternoon, all participants. Great to have the possibility to share some thoughts on the impact of COVID-19 on women and women leadership. I'm very happy to rejoin Women in Leadership also this year, even though this year it will have to be through a webinar. COVID-19 has had a huge impact, and if you, Johanna, put the first slide there, it has had a huge impact on all people around the world, and the crisis is more severe than we would have ever imagined. And my sympathy is with all people and communities affected, and with the families of the deceased. Discussing the impact of pandemic on women is by no means undermining the suffering of other people, and likewise discussing the eventual success of women-led governments in the battle against virus is not to undermine the efforts of others. But the it is indeed that this fight where all souls are needed. But the focus today is on women and leadership. Next slide, please. There are plenty of studies that address the impact of COVID-19 on women, and I see this as a sign that these impacts are widely recognized already. The UN policy brief is one of those that gives a very good outline of the question, and I would like to use and raise that in our discussion. According to this UN policy brief, the impacts of COVID-19 are aggravated for women and girls simply by virtue of their sex, be it health, economy, security, or social protection. While early reports have suggested that more men have been dying as a result of COVID-19, the health of women generally is adversely impacted through the reallocation of resources and priorities, including sexual and reproductive health services. Unpaid care work has increased with children out of school, heightened care needs of older persons, and overwhelmed health services. And according to the UN brief, gender-based violence has been increasing exponentially because of social stress coupled with restricted movements and social isolation measures. And if I can get the next slide, please. The UN policy brief outlines priority measures to accompany both the immediate response and longer-term recovery efforts. It is crucial that all national responses place women and girls, their inclusion, representation, rights, social and economic outcomes, equality and protection at the center of response and recovery measures if they are to have the necessary impacts. The policy brief emphasizes three cross-cutting priorities. First, to ensure women's equal representation in all COVID-19 response planning and decision-making. And evidence demonstrates that policies that do not consult women or include them in decision-making are simply less effective and can even do harm. Secondly, drive transformative change for equality by addressing the care economy, paid and unpaid. Care jobs from teachers to nurses are underpaid in relation to other sectors. In the home, women perform the bulk of care work, unpaid and invisible. And thirdly, target women and girls in all efforts to address the social economic impact of COVID-19. It is important to apply a gender lens to the design of fiscal stimulus packages and social assistance programs to achieve greater equality, opportunities, and social protection. The international humanitarian system has been able to respond to the pandemic quite fast, but carrying out our humanitarian operation has become more difficult and more expensive, and there is a danger of concentrating on national recovery plans instead of international humanitarian help. And also sexual and reproductive health as an essential component of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic is being challenged. If I can get the next slide, please. I would, with this one, like to bring the focus now to some European figures and measures. As we know, the healthcare sector has been facing unprecedented pressure. Healthcare workers are at the front line of the COVID-19 pandemic, and they are working around the clock, putting themselves and their families at risk to care for patients. Although both women and men working in this sector are exposed to the virus, women are potentially more at risk for infection simply because they make up the majority, that is 76% of healthcare workers in the European Union. And we can also mention that women make up 93% of childcare workers and teacher aides, 86% of personal care workers in health services, and 95% of domestic cleaners and helpers. These professions are some of the most undervalued and underpaid jobs in the EU. There are also several other people working in essential jobs that require contacts with others, such as supermarket cashiers who face greater exposure during the COVID-19 pandemic. Women are especially affected as they make up 82% of all cashiers in the EU. And if I can get the next slide, please. When the crisis hit so severely also the European continent, we have to ask whether we are prepared to keep in mind the gender perspective when deciding and implementing the recovery measures. I took very cursory look at the Finnish government proposals dealing with COVID-19, and I was still not convinced whether the gender lens had been used down the line. And reading the recent European Commission's communication identifying Europe's recovery needs that was just published very recently, I noticed that it does not include any reference to special needs of women and girls, but luckily two further communications in the same package do recognize some of the challenges. And namely, they mention that as women are overrepresented and underpaid in many frontline jobs, the gender pay gaps need to be closed. And secondly, the need to prevent and combat gender-based violence, protect victims of such crimes, and hold perpetrators accountable is recognized. And thirdly, measures to support gender equality and non-discrimination is mentioned as one of the key features that are necessary for a balanced recovery package. The European Union has adopted during the pandemic a lot of response measures, and I must say that I did not go through all of them and check whether they have recognized the gender and the rights of women and girls. But I do hope that similarly as the latest two communications, they do have recognized indeed. And if I can get the next slide, please. A month ago, New York Times published an article by Amanda Thorpe at the time when New Zealand, with its female Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, announced that the country could end the lockdown. She wrote about what she called a widely noticed trend, according to which countries led by women seem to be particularly successful in fighting the coronavirus. Germany, led by Angela Merkel, Finland, with its Prime Minister Sanna Marin, and Taiwan, led by its President Tsai Ing-wen, were mentioned as examples of such successes. The writer pointed out that one should resist drawing conclusions about women leaders from a few exceptional individuals acting in exceptional circumstances. But with reference to expert opinions, she wrote that the women's success may still offer valuable lessons about what can help countries weather not just this crisis, but others in the future. And female leaders may be a signal that the country has more inclusive political institution and values. She also underlined that male leaders can overcome gendered expectations, and of course, many have. But it may be less politically costly for women to do so because they do not have to violate perceived gender norms to adopt cautious defensive policies. That style of leadership may become increasingly valuable. And finally, Thorpe writes that eventually that could change perceptions of what strong leadership look like. So I would hope maybe this could raise some comments. And if I can get next slide, please. In the Finnish parliamentary elections a year ago, Finland formed new parliament where 47% of members are women. Later in December, Finland got a new government, women-led government with the 34-year-old Sanna Marin heading a coalition and cabinet dominated by women. 12 ministers out of 19 are young women. At the time of swearing in the Prime Minister, she was the youngest premier in the world and got a lot of international attention. Marin has, however, dismissed questions about her age and gender as irrelevant. Finland has had previously a female president of the Republic for 12 years and two earlier female prime ministers who served, however, short terms. And even if the female-dominated government is not considered anything extraordinary in Finland, there are, of course, people who are following very carefully how this female government will face in the politics. Some Russian media pointed out, to my recollection, around the new year that it is easy for these young women to rule under such favorable economic situation, but maybe not during more difficult times. And when this government in December swore in, COVID-19 was, of course, only a distant mystic disease far away from Finland. Economy was still going strong, and the government set very ambitious climate, employment, and social targets. Since then, the government has had a steep uphill battle, like all other governments struggling with the virus. The Dutch news reported last night about the relatively good success of Finland with less than 7,000 infected and about 320 deaths. The message was that it is due to a good general preparedness system of Finland, but also swift lockdown measures were referred to. Combating COVID-19 has required also in Finland tremendous economic sacrifices. And so far, the Prime Minister and her party have been able to increase their support among voters. So it has been perceived as having done a good job also within Finland. On Friday, the Deputy Prime Minister of the government announced that she would resign after a short sensation based on lacking procurement of the coaching services she had used. And according to today's news, she will be replaced by former Prime Minister Vanhanen, which brings the gender balance not to 12 ministers out of 19, but having 11 women ministers and eight male ministers. Still in favor of women, the balance is, if of course no other changes will occur. And of course, as a civil servant, I'm not in a position to take any stand on politicians' decisions to resign, but on the basis of recent Finnish government history, I would only say that it is more common in Finland for female politicians to bear political risk in this kind of situations by way of resignation. And finally, a few comments on the Finnish Foreign Ministry and COVID-19. I don't have any slide for this part. I would just like to tell you that in the Finnish Ministry for Foreign Affairs, a majority, that is 67% of the staff are women. Sex ratio in leadership and management positions is very balanced. Currently, 48% of Finnish ambassadors are women, and half of undersecretaries of state are women, and as much as 67% of director general are women. The only top position never held by a woman at the Finnish Foreign Ministry is that of a permanent state secretary. The first female foreign minister was Tarja Halonen, who thereafter became the first female president of the republic. So this is the kind of group of people that do Finnish foreign policy. Finland is supporting global actions against COVID-19 with some 45 million euros, mainly through multilateral cooperation. Finland underlines sexual and reproductive health as an essential component of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And Finland also channels support to enhancing the rights of women and girls through civil society. Finally, my small team here at the embassy comprises mostly of women. During the pandemic, we have been working mostly remotely, but we have been providing help, for example, to travelers wishing to return to Finland, those who need new passport when the border between the Netherlands and Belgium has been closed. And recently, a lot of customers wish to know about possibilities to travel to Finland. COVID-19 has put a lot of pressure also on the embassy. And I would like to thank, on this occasion, my small team, both men and women, on bearing through this difficult period. Let's hope that the worst is behind us. I think this is an appropriate point to stop and leave room for comments, questions, and to other speakers. I thank you.
Thank you, Päivi. Very insightful, and statistics are always interesting, but that really wakes me into the question that, you know, if we look at Finland European-wide, you could say that there's a lot of example to take. So do you see that this time of where we are living at the moment is kind of accelerating the Finland model to be spread around other European countries potentially, or how do you see the impact of this current COVID crisis then for other European countries?
Of course, it's difficult to know whether Finnish model, that is the government led by young women, will be copied or used. But at least it has been working, to my understanding, quite well. So it's not only the situation of a good economic that would allow these women to rule well, but also they have been doing quite good job during very difficult times. So I would at least hope that it gives a good example to politicians and also civil servants around Europe and around the globe, that there is some place for women to do this kind of work, and that they should not be afraid of very hard times either. So I would hope. It's difficult to see how it functions, but I would hope.
Yeah, let's do our best. I guess a lot in your role as ambassador, you can certainly promote at least the strong leadership and examples there. So I'm sure we'll hear more of that when we follow you in the social side as well. Are there any questions from anybody in the call? I think we had a message that actually the chat is only available for a limited group, so anybody can speak out, unmute your microphone at the moment you want to raise a question, and please do so. Päivi is here for answering. No urgent questions. You can save the questions then later on. Thank you, Päivi. Oh, there's one question maybe coming through at the moment. Let's see.
It's me.
Okay, good.
Hi. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. No. So if there is a question, please raise it now or save it later to the end of all the speakers.
Okay.
All right. Let's move forward then, because I want to thank you, Päivi, for your insights, and let's move onward to Caroline, because when we have everybody also presenting their insights and experiences in this time and looking towards that new era, we can actually come back in the end and still cover questions and answers at that moment. So thank you, Päivi. Let me welcome our second speaker, and she is Mrs. Caroline Simon-Thomas from KONE, Regional Director and Director of Modernization. Caroline, welcome. You've got lots of colleagues also on the call, which is great. And I think that if you can please take us through your insights and your introduction while you speak, then we are going to go with you.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome everyone in the webinar. What I want to do this afternoon is go a little bit to my own story at KONE, how I have perceived my years of working as a woman in leadership, and I will end what COVID is doing for me and my team, and I think for KONE as a whole. So if I start the next slide, it's a story about me. I've worked for over 5 years. And one of the main things I've learned during the whole journey I've had is to take the balance between life and work. So my background is I studied econometrics, which is a math and economics study. So I think very much in black and white, in formulas, in theories. And actually, after my first consulting job, I made the decision to have that balance better. So not work all hours of the day and take time to develop myself and get out of my comfort zone. And that's the left side of the slide. You can so things I have done. I've started singing, which I can't do, but I've tried it. I've done drawing. I've done ceramics. And what's typical of all these things, where I come from a study and education, which is very much with rules and a way, you know, you have a process or a formula. These are things where you get either a piece of paper or you get a bunch of clay, and you have to, without any rules, start and do something. And it's taught me a lot about opening my mind and trying to look at myself and not at others, because when you're doing drawing or the claying, there are always people who I perceive are better than myself. But I've had to let go and can actually say that I'm proud of some things which I've done. So, and it's actually given me something which I can also bring into my work, which is looking from different directions at the same problem. Next to that, I also like to go to theater, music, musea, also there to feel the creativity that people have and how they enjoy the work they do. But also I've made the decision about 6 years ago to give something back to the community. And that's what is Gilde Amsterdam. I live in Amsterdam. And I actually decided that I would like to give something back to the people of Amsterdam who can use my expertise. And I think we sometimes underestimate how much we can give back to a community. What I do there is I do coaching. So I coach people who either have difficulty in their job, and then you have to think of people who, for example, work in a flower stand and have problems with their co-workers. People have been out of a job for 5 years and are over 60 years. People who have, you know, had hurdles in their life. And it's been very rewarding to see people get back into a job after about 6 years without a job. But it's also learned something about the pace that we in a working environment have. We make our lives so effective and so busy that once you have to coach someone who's been out of a job for 5 years, and you try to make, you know, to contact with them and say, okay, these are the things we're going to do next week, which I think are easy to do. And the next week, they haven't done them. It's because they don't know where to start. So it's actually enriched my life and also given me that not everyone is like I am, you know, with going for meetings, reaching targets. So I do it every 2 weeks, and I have between 1 to 2 persons doing it. And also in the COVID time, it's more difficult because they find it an excuse, but we still find opportunities to do it. And then I think the last one is sports, which of course I don't maybe always want to do, but I do. And I think all the things in this slide actually show that to be successful in your work, it's especially to get the energy after your work. I think they both have to work together. So on one hand, getting the energy, but also releasing the energy coming from work. So that's a little bit about me. Then maybe to the next slide. So my experience at Conne and I have a relationship of over 20 years. So I started abroad in Belgium. I've worked in the UK. Belgium, I had a global role. So I worked all over the world with different cultures. Very nice to network. After that, I went to the UK, which was UK and Ireland, full in a leadership team in a different environment. And after that, I went to Holland, where I've had different roles. And there's one thing I could say over 20 years, it's been a very nice journey, and I've learned a lot about myself, but also about how it is to work in a Finnish company. One of the first experiences I had was a meeting in Finland where I presented, and then it was quiet. And we Dutch people like to talk, so I went on talking, and a colleague of mine said, Caroline, in Finland, silence is part of the meeting. So in this whole journey of working in different cultures, I've also learned who I am, but also that different cultures want a different way of being treated. If I look especially, I want to just zoom in to me as a female in a, I can still say male-dominated environment. I have always been respected. I've always felt part of the team. The majority of leadership teams I've had maybe one woman next to me in the team, but I've always felt respected. And I think one of the important messages for me is for women in leadership roles, stay yourself, stay to a leadership style which fits you, and don't try to adjust. Because what I also experience is there is a gender difference, but as long as you stay close to yourself, it will be accepted, and it also will help you. Because if I look at my leadership style, I believe in trust. Of course, I have targets to reach, but it starts with a plan. And what I try to tell the people in my team, make a plan, make a top 3 to focus on. And if we follow the plan, I will give you the trust, and I'm sure the results will be achieved. And this is something where I sometimes see in the leadership team that we tend to move to control, because if the targets aren't reached, we tend to go into a control, whereas I still very much believe in responsibility to the teams. It's the teams that have to do it, which are reporting into me. I don't try to judge people. So I sometimes experience that people around me have a quick judgment. That person is not performing. Whereas I always think, listen and try to read between the lines. And I think that's something we as women have stronger than men. We can read between the line and maybe sense there's something, whereas men tend to stay to the facts and say, okay, your figures aren't right, so you're not performing. But we are not looking at maybe there's an underlying reason someone's not performing. And often when we take the time and we listen, we will find that underlying reason. And I have examples of people where we really said, it's not performing. And eventually we see him as a performer, and it's all due to time. So I think men there tend to focus a bit more on the facts. Also, what I've experienced, that I'm very much, and now I talk in my role in the leadership team, I want the team to flourish. So we as a whole to flourish, where sometimes I feel that some members of the team are more focused on their business line or their region flourishing. I fully believe that we all have to do it together, and not one part of the team performing. Also, and this webinar was an example, I feel women are more insecure than men. We want to do things perfect. We want to know it's going to be 100% correct. Whereas, and I think that's maybe because we're in roles where we're not used to. whereas males, I sometimes say they bluff a bit more. And I also have in my own management team, I have women, and I see exactly the same behavior that I also have. So the thing I have with insecurity, which my boss tries to help me, I try to help the people in my team. And also it's the way we communicate of what we do. And I have a nice example, which is Conne had a coaching mentee program, and it was mainly meant for women. And I had someone from the board, an American coach, and we had a discussion. And the first discussion we had, he said, so tell me, who are you and what do you do? So I explained, well, this is my name and I've had different roles in Conne, and I actually really like to change. He said, so, and do you achieve your targets? I said, well, I would say in the majority of times I achieve my target by introducing change. He said, so what you should actually do is you should turn the story around. You're a very result-driven person. You're successful in achieving your results, and you do it by making plans and change. And what I thought then is actually we're saying exactly the same thing, but I like to step back and say, we do it together. And he's like more like males are more upfront and telling what they're doing. And I think that's also something, if you want a career, and I now speak about Conne, women have to step up and say what they want, because our male colleagues do that, and we sometimes tend to be a bit, I don't know, I'm not sure, but if you want to go ahead, that's what we have to do. And I think, which was stated in the first slide, do we want to work without men? No, I like the men around me, so that's I think the balance is good. I think if I look for me, it would be good to have more women in leadership roles. So, but I've always experienced it as good. And for me, trust, responsibility is really what it's about. And it doesn't matter that we're different. We all have different styles. But I think the balance of both genders is good in the different teams. And maybe we could go to the next slide, which is women in Conne, Netherlands. So I just want to step a little bit into the front line, the Dutch organization. And what I did as I was preparing for this webinar, I actually looked back at our own organization. And I've been in the Dutch organization since 2009. And I have actually seen, and I'm really proud of it, to see more women in leadership roles. And it goes from all levels. And bear in mind, we are perceived a technical company. We maintain, we install and modernize elevators, escalators, and doors. And we are talking about technology. But if I look at what we've seen come into the organization, the last year we had our second female fitter, so she's out doing service. So we have 2 women in that position. And then if we look at the field managers and the supervisors, these are the women and men who are leading our fitters and our installers and our maintenance fitters. We have 5 women in that position. And why is it successful? We are trying to transform from an inside-out company to an outside-in company. It means we have to understand our customers. When we talk to our customers, they're not technical people. They are people who are a facility manager. They're people who are maybe part of a housing association. They want to talk. They want us to understand what their problem is. And it's clearly seen that the women we have in those roles are very good, not only with our customers, but also with our technicians. They give they spend time with our technicians, try to understand how it's going. And I encourage more women in those roles, and they are very well respected by their peers and by their direct reports. Then we have a leading coalition. So this is the number, these are the managers reporting into the leadership team with a team below them. And there we have 33% women. And also that is a very good number. It's not enough, you know, we always, because we would also like to see more coming into the leadership, but it's a very good figure. And it's in this transition, we want more women in roles. But as we are perceived a technical company, I think sometimes people are hesitant. And I must say, if you look at the picture right, the way we advertise outside, whether it be in positions or other thing, I would guess 99% is still a man in the picture and not a woman in the picture. So that's what I think we can still do. But I think women can be more proud of what they do within KONE, because I would say in all areas, people have perceived that it actually has added a value. And I think from a organization where field managers have been fitters who have been have been promoted, we now see more people coming from outside. So I think that's something I'm proud of, and I'm proud of the women, and we're doing a good job, but we can also always do more. We've also had a special training program a couple of years ago about women coming to the top, where we've tried to give them more confidence. They've really been trained on how they can grow in the organization. So I think we're in the right direction, and we encourage any women coming into KONE. Maybe the last slide, and that's managing during this period. Well, we actually changed overnight into an organization where you met your colleagues, you met your customers on a face-to-face, to all of a sudden being in a digital environment. And like now, Teams is the way we communicate inside and with customers. And we've also had our social life cut off for part. We weren't allowed to go to friends, to family. So it's made a big change. And it's also made a big change in our own mood, also for me. So we started up with Teams. First, people didn't have their camera on, and especially here, I've got the feedback. Women are a little bit more afraid of showing their camera than men, but we've started again to get into the Teams. But what I do see in this time, and I think as a leader of a team, it's very important, is we are in a meeting with people, we're in a one-on-one with people, but do we really understand what's going on with the people in their personal environment, in their home situation? And I think that's very difficult, because we try to give trust, and if we stick to the facts, we tend to go into a control mood again. So I've tried to spend time with people. We as a company have also spent a lot of time talking to people. My MD has spoken to people working alone. And what I see is that if we don't spend time to understand how people are in their own environment, we might see people slip. And I have examples of people who have difficulty, and now we're trying to get them into the office to just get the structure back to them and ensure that they stay with us during this period. And I think here there's also one big difference between the genders. And I spoke to a colleague today. We women like to have a little bit of chit chat without any content, or just want to explain, oh, I had a difficult discussion with someone, and we can't do that. So we suggested that when we come back to the office, maybe the women come back first, because the men are fine working at home. But it's a difficult time. We've also, as a company, of course, had luckily everyone's still at work. But also we look at, how we're going to get out. And the main thing is, it's not only about us, it's not only about the employees, but as important is our customers, who are going through difficult times depending on the segment they're in. So it's been a new time, a challenging time. And for new starters coming into the business, it's also been very challenging to have to do things from a Teams environment. And I think with that, I would like to thank everyone. So that's the next slide. This is a little bit my story over the past 20 years and during this period.
Thanks, Caroline. It's really nice to hear the KONE story in this time. So just a few thoughts that I have on top of my mind on that is that did KONE have a lot of risk planning and exercises before about a similar situation happen? Was there anticipation about, somewhere in the higher management where you are as well, about what if something similar happens, and that in relation to what kind of leadership is needed?
Well, I think if you would look back half a year or maybe 3/4 of a year, I think we would never have thought the situation we would have come into. What we have done is when the first signals came, we've very clearly stated, we've had multiple meetings, but also tried to get the teams together. How's everyone doing? I think we've been lucky that if we look at the business that KONE has, our service, our maintenance went on, the building sites are open, the modernization is still on. So we haven't, as a company, had a lockdown of not being able to go to customers, and especially with the people who are outside, they find it very difficult to stay in-house all day. But we have the one that we haven't, so we didn't really foresee it. We did when we saw the first signals, and that's, I think, the benefit of a big company. We could already see what was happening in China and in Asia. So we learned from there, and we also learned from there for the way to get out of this period. And I think in managing the team, we have discussed with one another, what are the things we should do. And for example, about the weekend before Whit Monday, we send everyone flowers to thank them and to appreciate them, because I think that's what you have, because there's less interaction. People might not be appreciated, and it was really overwhelming, the feedback we got on that, especially also from men, from our male fitters, where the woman all of a sudden got a bunch of flowers and said thank you, and the guy went, I don't know, but so I think it's important to show them that we can't be out there because due to restrictions, but we can show people we know they're in a difficult situation and appreciate the work they do for us and for our customers.
Okay. Caroline, do you think that KONE will have on long term a boost impact for further to support more the female leadership and the opportunities that the pandemic creates? You were talking a lot about creating trust and having those traits that are typically associated to be easier for women, talking about customer experience and being, listening to customer and so further. Is that something that you see is going to stick at KONE, going forward? And how do you see that the message is to the women that are out there, you know. How do you see Kone develop?
Yeah, I would say that even before this pandemic, and I've been in different leadership teams, we have always wanted women in the roles of leadership. The only problem, I would say, if you talk, is that we as a company have a very technical image, and that's why it's good seeing these new people come into our business. And for example, we have one new supervisor, and she's posting a lot of LinkedIn. And I think it's showing that we also have a different face of being with our customers and trying to get different channels of getting more women in. But I would say all women are welcome. And the one nice thing the fitter said to me when I asked her how she actually came in. She worked in the care, and she was crazy about elevators. So she asked if she could make a picture of the big mono, which is a machine, and we invited her. And when she was talking about her passion, we said, "Why don't you come and join us?" And she was like, "Me? Why would I join?" And she said to me, "I think there are much more women out there who would like to join, but we have to convince them that we're open." So I think that's why what I said, our presentation we have to have much more women in roles and in pictures, and then maybe we will attract others. And I think for me, working for a Finnish company and knowing the Nordics, there are much more women in those roles. And as was said by the previous speaker, if you look at the government in Finland, there are a lot of women. So there, I think it's more normal than maybe here. But we try, and I just got one new woman in my management team, so I'm doing my best. And I know my colleagues are also doing it. So I think, but it's also pre-COVID that we want women, because we do think they add different things.
Yes. Okay, so we will be very inspired to follow up Kone, moving from that electronic company into an experience-based company. I do agree that, you know, this time must be full of opportunities also for women at Kone, and near, you know, those that want to join Kone to see, you know, what can happen to the famous elevator pitch on the long term as well. I mean, there's nothing as famous as a concept, you know, and I always wonder why nobody makes a big advert out of it. So, you know, maybe that's going to be something we see more in the future to come. Any other questions from the audience? I don't hear much from the audience so far, so if anybody has questions to Caroline, now is a good moment to raise some questions. Please just unmute yourself and raise your question. There's a lot of silence. That's a Finnish treat. So you know, kind of we must have it as a compliment that we have probably provided a lot of insight during your presentation, Caroline. So I thank you very much for this. Yeah. And let me indeed move forward to our third speaker, and that is Laura. So Laura, do you want to present yourself also in more words? I think you are going to take us more to the personal perspective, as we have now covered, let's say, the macro picture, the kind of environment we are at. We've looked at the corporate with Caroline, and with the example of Kone, seen how that is, you know, giving opportunities and having a demand for female leadership more. So Laura, please welcome and take us through your insights and how you want to make us do some exercise potentially at the end of your session. So please go ahead, Laura.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. First of all, I'm very, very, very honored to have been invited to this webinar alongside with our ambassador Päivi Kaukoranta, and a very inspiring speech of Carolina Simon Thomas, who's an expert on her field. It was very, very interesting. Thank you very much. As you stated, Satu, we go to the next slide, please. There's a little small bio. So I have a new business. It's relatively new. I started it last year. I have a day job at the European Space Agency. Very, very, very inspiring environment. I took a sabbatical leave from my job last year and started this heart center. This business comes from my heart. It comes from within. It's my real passion and mission, called Victim to Winner Coaching, where I will go in a minute for what it stands for and what it really is. But basically, that we need to get out of the victim mentality, thinking that circumstances define our life, but we have to take a lead and control of our lives. So then I returned to my job. I had a half a year sabbatical leave. I built the business, but because I'm a staff member at the European Space Agency, I needed to have a permission, which I just recently have received to run my business, which makes me extremely happy. So I can do both. My coaching is based on NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. We will do a little exercise in the end of my presentation, but I've also been trained by Tony Robbins and Michelle Stonehill, a coach. So I'm combining a few different kind of approaches. Often it kind of comes together, though. It's a lot to do with the fact that when we have to take control of our lives. It's up to us. My biggest teacher in life is Jamie, a 7-year-old boy. I'm a single mother in the sense of he's with me every other week and with his father every other week. We both are expats here in the Netherlands, so we have to stay very, very strong, both of us, because we are the only ones. Everybody, all the expats know that anyway, that the support structure, we've built it ourselves. There's no family, so friends become family. I love running and adventures. Me and Jamie, we go for adventures, whether it's the other side of the world when we travel, or we go to the park and collect rocks and play football. All adventures are fun, and like I said, he's my biggest teacher. Next slide, please, Jonna. So this is the leading, let's say, sentence of my mission of my business. That regardless of what we've been through in life, it's up to us as adult women, men as well. But since my ideal client is women, and here as well now with today we're talking about the women in leadership, it's up to us to take charge of our life 100%, and leave the victim kind of mentality mindset and become winners. Basically, we have been. The women I'm addressing in my coaching is victims of abuse, often sexual or otherwise, either in a childhood or later, maybe relationships, maybe a workplace. This is reflecting my own personal history, and the fact that we can either, let's say, spoil our life and waste our life staying in that victim mindset while the act of violence has already taken place. So we're not victims anymore. We're only victims when the act takes place. Of course, as children it's different, but now we're adults. So once we left the bad situation, or whether it's a relationship, after that, we're not victims anymore. So then it's anymore only a mindset. So we have to move forward from that. And once we understand that, then we start the process. It might be a long way. There might be healing from post-traumatic stress disorder. There might be many steps to take, but we have to start and we have to claim it. Next slide, please. So, like I said, each moment we have a new choice. It doesn't matter how old we are. We might be 60. I'm 45 now. I started this journey some years ago, and reflecting back, I was blaming the childhood, the waste opportunities in education because I was ill following the abuse, and I was depressed. I was blaming ex-partners, partners, job, boss, the clerk at the supermarket. I was blaming everything else. And the idea is obviously not that we would start, or me in that case, to blame myself. That also not that we already do, and that's not beneficial at all. The idea being is that we need to take control, stop blaming altogether. So, and in each moment we have that choice. Each moment, maybe I didn't do it yesterday, but today I make that choice. Now I make a decision that I'm going to take charge of the situation and start moving forward from there. Next slide, please. So the leading during COVID pandemic, that's a little bit different, but it still comes together. It's still comparable for any situation. Of course, now is a crisis. It came very, very close to me as I contracted the virus mid-March myself, and that's when the Netherlands was going into lockdown. I became very, very sick. I was at home alone as contagious, so we can't see anybody. My child wasn't with me, and it was very, very scary because I had a fever for like 1 month, and I had a pressure and all the symptoms of the coronavirus. At the same time, when the symptoms were getting worse, but the doctors were also not able to help. I was asking them, how come this is getting worse and not better? And they said, we don't know, it's a new virus. So this situation, it came very close to me, but I see it now as a huge blessing. First of all, the amount of gratitude I have in life now. I had it before, but now it's tremendous. I really appreciate everything, and every moment with my child, I couldn't be with him. Since I was alone at home, I actually thought I was going to die, so it came this close. So luckily I did recover. At the same time, I had, when I say that small acts create huge impact, I had friends and family pushing me, and it might be maybe small to send somebody a message or a call, or I had 2 friends bringing me food as well home. That was priceless. That was priceless because I couldn't do anything. So what I'm saying here is, first of all, we have to take control. We have to put the oxygen mask. We can't on ourselves. We can't pour from an empty cup. So first of all, we have to take care of ourselves. And then second, we have to remember to check on our neighbors or our friends, and everybody needs support. Everybody needs support. Everybody needs we need to check on everybody, even though the strong ones as well. When I say put on your oxygen mask first, this goes in life in general, and we as women, we have lots of soft skills. We have that kind of power. So first, we need to take care of ourselves. And for me, after recovering from the coronavirus, first during recovery, I felt that nobody can help me now other than me. The doctors don't know. My friends and family, they're also scared. So I was also helping them. So I knew that I have to now use all the strategies and all the skills that I learned to move forward and to get better. First of all, because I have to lead myself out of this, and I have a child who I have to take care of. So that was the first thing. And then once I recovered, I started very rapidly exercising a lot. I do that anyway, but that played a huge role. I just got myself to a very good physical state in 1 month time by exercising a lot. So that was part of putting that oxygen mask on myself. And then soon I could start taking better care of my child. I could be there for him and then for other people. So in small, we created little exercise groups. And I saw how much people appreciated that. People who I would think that they don't maybe need so much help, or they're fine, they're strong, but they appreciate it so much. Every day, just little message, how you doing? Did you do exercise? Well done, you. So yeah, that's that during this time I've noticed that, but it's always in life. It's always in life that we have to come together. So this, for me, this pandemic has been a very, very big blessing in that sense. The use of language to empower is always very important, but especially when we're trying to go forward. So often to go in front of the mirror, that's what I did. Go in front of the mirror and talk in present sense that I am healthy, I'm getting through this. Just few things and just repeat it all over and over again. And same with our loved ones and people around us, or the people we are coaching. It's the language has such a huge power. And then meditation. So this saying that now goes around during this pandemic that we can't go out, so we need to go in. So meditation plays a big role. So often about meditation, we think that we have to be a monk and we have to have 1.5 hours and sit in the mountains, but no, few minutes a day makes a big difference. And it might first feel like insignificant, but it really in the long term, it calms the mind, and that way we can move forward and think more clearly and then make better decisions again. And then we go to the next, please. So I would like to please do a little exercise. It's from the NLP. It's called Swiss pattern. I'm just going to quickly define what the NLP is. So it's the neuro-linguistic programming. So the neuro stands for nervous system through which experience is received and processed through the 5 senses. Then the linguistic is to do with the language, obviously. So the language and non-verbal communication systems through which neural representations are coded, ordered, and given meaning. And then the programming is the ability to organize our communication and neurological systems to achieve specific desired goals and results. So basically it's training the brain and giving different meanings. And again, it comes back to a lot to that previous slide where I said that language is so important. So if we talk to ourselves all day long in a negative manner, if we say to ourselves like, I messed this up again and I'm never going to get there, that's going to be the reality. But if we turn it around and say that I got this, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, whatever we want to achieve, that really plays a key role there. So if you would please close your eyes. We do a small Swiss pattern exercise. Please pick a compulsion you would like to change. It could be binge eating. For example, for me, it was binge eating chocolate and biscuits, or something like this. Something of a sort. Can be any other kind of. This could also work for smoking. Then if it would be now, since we have many in this call, we can't go through everybody's, but let's see, we take this chocolate biscuits for example. We have a compulsion to eat chocolate biscuits a lot. And now look at that picture in front of you, because everything is a picture in our brain. Look at that picture in front of you. Look at this chocolate, and how does that make you feel? How does it feel for you? How does it smell like? And now think about the alternative. Think about the alternative. You can pick. Let's take an apple. The apple will make us healthy, make us look better, skinnier, whichever kind of association you could think that the apple would make you feel and give you more control and makes you look better instead of the chocolate or the biscuit. And which also, if there's some sounds to it, all the senses, feels, smells. How would you feel when you were totally in control? Now, that bright picture you have of the beautiful chocolate biscuits, which are, of course, nice, send that picture right to the horizon. It gets really, really dark, small, right at the back of the room, and it's a small black dot anymore. Now look at the picture where you will be eating the apple. It's right in front of you. It's beautiful. It's bright. Think how it makes you feel. about yourself. You're in control. You decide. How does it make you feel like? What does it smell like? Now look at it, make it a huge, huge, bright picture in front of you. Now we're going to do this quickly. I'm going to make a swish sound where it's going to go a little bit back and forth, because these chocolate biscuits, they're still, or whichever you're thinking, they're still the compelling one, the ones you've been doing. So now the chocolate is coming towards you again, the chocolate picture is coming towards you again, and swish, this apple is going to the horizon and becomes a small dot. The chocolate is in front of you, trying to push, and now send this chocolate picture to the horizon, and the beautiful apple, healthy, makes you feel good and skinny and nice looking. It's in front of you. Now swish, send it back to the horizon, and the chocolate is trying to approach again. And now swish, send that chocolate back to the horizon until it becomes a tiny dot, and this apple is in front of you. It's beautiful. It makes you feel good and healthy. Now this is you can keep doing this, or you can take another compulsion you want to get rid of it. The main thing is that once next time, if it is eating chocolate, when you get this feeling, let me eat some chocolate, just send that chocolate picture as far away as the horizon, as long as you can only see the little black dot and you can't even see it anymore. And then bring this healthy apple in front of you. I hope this helped and worked, and you can always contact me for questions. And that ends my presentation, the last slide. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Laura, so much.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Hi, it's Shahida from London. So Laura and I have known each other for a very long time, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to ask Laura anyway. So Laura, how did you find the courage to actually leave behind or put on hold a very stable job at the European Space Agency, and really to pursue this ambition of yours, knowing that you have a family to support? Because there will be many, many women and men, you know, who have many ambitions and many aspirations to be somewhere else in life, but actually they just cannot be where they want to be because of financial constraints, for example. It takes courage.
Thank you so much, Shahida. Thank you for joining. Thank you for the question. First of all, I'm very, very blessed and lucky to have both. Now that I have permission to exercise the business, and still being a single mother, of course, this is something to consider very carefully, the income. However, the calling is so strong. It comes from within. It's so strong that I have to do it. So that's where the courage comes from, and it's so clear. I think when we get very clear with our intention, we completely ourselves. It's the truth. We have to follow it. That's how I feel about it. So I think that gave me the courage, and then it's me. So then it feels like that's all I can do, really. Thank you, Shahida.
Okay, thank you.
Satu, we can't hear you.
Thank you for pointing out. So thanks, Laura, for taking us through the exercise as well, and your very personal story about how to decide what kind of story you tell to yourself, and how you kind of create and look forward to the opportunities and the way how you can add value personally, and kind of, you know, learn us all from that example in that way. to kind of, see always the, let's say, the glass full instead of the glass empty part if it's half filled. So I guess that's like one of the capabilities that is tying our theme together. What makes a strong position for a female leader, but also for any leader to look to beyond the COVID-19 pandemic and what kind of choices one can take in their personal lives about the story you tell and opportunities you take going forward. So thank you for sharing those insights, Laura.
Thank you so much.
And I'm going to get rid of my chocolate cookie thing now. I think that's a great exercise. So thank you for sharing that.
Brilliant.
Are there any questions from anybody else in the meantime that may cover all the three speakers that we have during today?
I have a general question, if that's okay.
Yes.
First of all, thank you all so much. And Laura, I'm really happy to hear that you're feeling better right now. I'm actually very curious about your experiences or maybe opinions about if women in leadership need other things from their manager than male colleagues in the same role do.
Right.
Is that question for Laura or is that question for all?
For everybody, yeah.
Okay, so let's also unmute the rest of the speakers, and Laura, please start if you will.
Yeah, I think this is a good question for Caroline more than me, I believe.
Okay, just so that I understand the question. So do I expect different things from my manager than my colleague?
Well, do you think that, for example, I am the only female field manager in Region East?
Yeah.
Do you think it's common that women need different things from their manager? For example, me from my manager than my male colleagues do from the same person?
Yes, yes. If I look at my role and if I look at the people I manage, like I said, women have, I don't know how it was with you, but women have a bit more insecurity, and they want to, they want to get some feedback more often. They just want some attention. So I would say, yes, women need a different type of approach than men. And the question is always, if a man has never led women, how do you get those things? So I think what I always do is I always tell my boss what I expect. And sometimes I hope he will read between the lines. And if he doesn't, you then go back and ask. But if I talk on my own experience, and if I talk now, actually, for the first time, I have a management team meeting where I have someone I haven't known for a while. I think they notice the difference and I notice the difference. Also, if I compare to the other ones, because I'm used to it, I know that I have to lead differently, and I question if everyone has had that experience.
Thank you.
So do we have anybody else sharing their experience? Do women need to be led differently? How do you do it, Päivi, in your ambassador's role with your teams? Is it a different style with men than women?
Thank you. Very interesting question. We tend to think that, or I tend to think that I would lead similarly, but I do fear that there is some level of subconscious treatment of people that we do treat them differently, even though we do not admit them. If I think about, on the other hand, of how I have thought of my career, I don't think I've ever thought that my gender would have been an obstacle to pursue my career. but because of many times referred to already today that women are a bit insecure, I may have had a suspicion that my background being a lawyer and having worked a long time in the legal field, that may have a bearing on in an organization where people are more generalistic, or my other characteristics might be an obstacle. So this may not answer totally to your question, but I think myself, I do not admit to myself that I would lead differently, even though that there might be some sense in it that people need different kind of leadership, and at the level of subconscious, I may do it.
Thank you, Päivi, for that answer. Indeed. Let's move forward. I think we've got maybe the last question from Valentini, but if that is a quick one, we can take it before we go to closing notes and wrapping it up, because we are approaching the time limit as well. So, Valentini, do you have a question that we can address quickly here, or otherwise separately on person? I think we can't hear Valentini, so let's move forward towards a wrap up. I think what the themes of everybody, everybody's three stories have been that even though we've got existing power structures in companies or countries or in personal level, I think this pandemic is accelerating potentially certain developments to certain directions. And the way how we, my takeaway is that the way how we look towards the opportunities that this situation is creating is the key to success and the key to strong leadership going forward. Listening to what Caroline was saying about the need for more creativity, need to listen, need to work on the experience base. I think those are all opportunities that give for female leaders also more opportunities to excel and make that career that has been maybe not fully realized in the bigger numbers of us, so far. So looking at that from that perspective, I think there's a plenty of opportunity. So thank you for all of your insights, our three speakers, Päivi, Caroline, and Laura. Let's move forward to Johanna. Johanna, you have your few recommendations and for us for afterward. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Satu, and indeed, thank you all three inspiring speakers, Päivi, Caroline, and Laura, for your insights. And I definitely swifted away my chocolates and we'll think about it the next time when I have that in front of me. So thank you for the inspiring session. I hope we succeeded to inspire all of you in the lines as well. For more inspiration, here are a couple of book tips. Maybe you know already, some of you know already these books, but just as a reminder, the Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office, that's one of the classics, as well as The Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. But as well, a little bit the vulnerability theme is Brené Brown, Dare to Lead. It's really recommended as well as to all the mothers out there, What I Told My Daughter by Nina Tesler. So if you have any other tips, please write to the chat, or if you're not able to write to the chat, you can email us to the same email where you used to register. So then we'll include that to the thank you email we send to all the participants as well, together with this presentation as PDF. So let us know, and yeah, thank you for joining, and stay updated. by subscribing to the newsletter. For example, we are planning a new session for autumn, for after summer, with new speakers. Maybe you have some speakers in mind already that you would like to hear. And as well as a couple of June events, we have a creative workshop coming online. Then we have our annual general meeting, Nordic Afterwork as well online, LinkedIn workshop, and a mentoring seminar. So all of these are still to come. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to contact us, and see you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for co-hosting, Johanna, and everybody have a wonderful evening. Enjoy your dinner and stay tuned. This is a topic that will remain for the time being. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.